The Ingenuity vessel analytical precision hung in Earth's orbit, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight into prismatic patterns across its surface. Inside, Chief Observer Ixel stared at the holographic display with all four of their eyes, each one focused on a different data stream that made increasingly less sense. "Run the analysis again," Ixel commanded, their crystalline appendages clicking in frustration. Junior Observer Kex's tendrils rippled with embarrassment. "Respected Elder, we have already run it 17 times. The results remain consistent, though they defy all known scientific principles." On the display, a human settlement in what their database identified as Minnesota continued about its daily routine. The temperature read -20 degrees Celsius, well below the survival threshold for carbon-based life forms of their size and mass. Yet not only were the humans surviving, they were engaging in recreational activities outdoors. "Impossible," Ixel muttered, reaching out to manipulate the holographic controls with practiced precision. "No species can maintain homeostasis in such conditions without advanced thermal regulation technology. The humans appear to be using only primitive external insulation," Kex noted, bringing up a detailed scan of the thick garments the humans wore. "The material composition is remarkably simple, processed plant and animal fibers, primarily." Ixel's crystalline structure flickered with irritation. The Ingenuity had spent millennia perfecting their scanning technology, designed to analyze and categorize every species in the galaxy. It had never failed them before. Yet here they were, watching humans casually defy what they had thought were universal biological constraints. "What about the internal temperature readings?" Ixel demanded. "Stable at approximately 37 degrees Celsius, Kex reported. They're maintaining perfect homeostasis despite the extreme external temperature variance. And there's more." Ixel braced themselves. "More. We've detected numerous examples of humans deliberately exposing themselves to even colder temperatures. They appear to cut holes in frozen bodies of water and immerse themselves. For what purpose? According to intercepted communications, recreation." Ixel's crystalline form clouded slightly, a sign of deep disturbance among their species. The display shifted to show one such scene, a group of humans laughing as they jumped into a hole in a frozen lake, their bodies generating heat signatures that should have been impossible to maintain. "Perhaps our equipment is malfunctioning," Ixel suggested, though they knew it wasn't true. The analytical precision was the most advanced observation vessel ever created by the Ingenuity consensus. Its quantum sensors could detect the movement of individual atoms across half a solar system. "All systems are operating within optimal parameters," Kex confirmed. "We've cross-referenced with 3 backup systems. The readings are accurate." The display shifted again, this time showing a different settlement in a region labeled Death Valley. The temperature there read +56 degrees Celsius. "And here we observe the same humans not only surviving but working in conditions that should denature their proteins," Kex continued. "Their cooling mechanisms appear to be largely passive, primarily relying on the evaporation of water through their skin." "Evaporative cooling." Ixel's tone carried disbelief. "At that scale, without mechanical assistance?" "Yes, Elder. And there's more. We've detected humans living at altitudes where oxygen content is insufficient for complex life, yet their bodies simply adapt. They produce additional red blood cells to compensate. No genetic modification, no technological assistance. They just change." Ixel studied the readings in silence for several moments. In their 1,000 cycles of scientific observation, they had never encountered anything like this. The humans weren't using any technology that their scanners could detect. They weren't genetically engineered. They were, by all available data, a naturally evolved species. Yet they survived and thrived in conditions that should have been lethal. "Have you analyzed their response to other environmental stressors?" Ixel asked, dreading the answer. "Yes, Elder. They appear to be able to digest substances that would be toxic to most carbon-based life forms. They deliberately consume fermented materials, chemicals that trigger pain responses, and compounds that interfere with their nervous systems. Some even seek out these experiences regularly. And their genetic structure, remarkably stable, yet flexible. Their DNA appears capable of expressing different traits in response to environmental pressures within a single generation, without permanent modifications. It defies everything we know about genetic science. Ixal's crystalline form pulsed with waves of troubled light. They had come to Earth expecting to find another primitive species taking its first steps into space. Instead, they had found something that challenged the very foundations of their scientific understanding. Recommendations? Ixal asked, their voice carrying the weight of their responsibility to the consensus. Kex's tendrils moved in a pattern indicating deep thought. The data suggests that our current models of biological adaptation are incomplete. The humans appear to operate outside our established parameters for survivable conditions. Perhaps we should reevaluate our basic assumptions about the limitations of carbon-based life and our mission parameters. Given these observations, I believe it would be unwise to proceed with standard contact protocols. The humans' adaptive capabilities make them unpredictable. We cannot accurately model their potential responses or limitations. Ixal turned their attention back to the holographic display, watching as humans in Minnesota continued their winter activities, their bodies somehow maintaining perfect homeostasis in conditions that should have been fatal. In Death Valley, humans worked under a sun that should have cooked them alive, their bodies efficiently managing heat that would kill most species. And somewhere in the high mountains, humans were living and working in air too thin to support complex life, their bodies simply changing to meet the challenge. Send a priority message to the consensus, Ixal commanded. Inform them that we have encountered a species that appears to violate our understanding of biological limitations. Recommend immediate revision of first contact protocols and request additional observation resources. Additional resources, Elder? Yes, Ixal confirmed, their crystalline structure reflecting their deep unease. I suspect we have only begun to scratch the surface of human capabilities, and for the first time in my career, I find myself wondering if our advanced technology might be inadequate for the task of understanding them. The analytical precision continued its orbit around Earth, its sophisticated sensors gathering data that would keep Xinteri scientists arguing for decades. Below, oblivious to the confusion they were causing among their watchers, humans continued to do what they had always done: adapt, survive, and thrive in conditions that should have been impossible. The Galactic Council's Joint Research Station Harmony wasn't living up to its name. Emergency containment fields flickered with purple energy throughout the station's primary research wing, and the station's AI was calmly announcing evacuation procedures in 17 different languages. Senior researcher Vilara's tentacles writhed in distress as she stared at the environmental readings. How many humans were exposed to the neurotoxin? She demanded, her phosphorescent spots pulsing with anxiety. 12, her assistant Zix reported, his exoskeleton clicking nervously. They were in the break room when the containment failure occurred. The room was flooded with approximately 300 parts per million of Nexilin-9. Vilara's spots dimmed in horror. Nexilin-9 was one of the deadliest known neurotoxins in the galaxy, capable of causing complete nervous system failure in most species at just 5 parts per million. At 300 parts per million, there wouldn't even be time for painless euthanasia. Have the bodies been retrieved? She asked softly, already dreading the diplomatic incident this would cause. Humans were new to the galactic community, and losing 12 of their scientists to a preventable accident would be catastrophic. Zix's antennae twitched in confusion. That's why I came to find you, senior researcher. They're still in there. Still? What do you mean still in there? The toxin levels. They're alive. Zix interrupted, breaking protocol in his agitation. They're not just alive. They're, well, you should see for yourself. Vilara followed Zix to the observation window overlooking the break room. Inside, through the shimmer of the containment field, she could see the human scientists. They were neither dead nor dying. Instead, they were sitting around drinking from their thermal containers. "This is impossible," Vilera whispered, her tentacles coiling tightly against her body. "The atmospheric sensors must be malfunctioning." "All systems have been triple-checked," Zix confirmed. "The Nexilin 9 levels are actually increasing due to the ongoing leak, currently at 342 parts per million. But look at their neural scans." Vilera's eyes shifted to the medical readouts. The humans' nervous systems were not only functioning but showing increased activity. Their brain chemistry was shifting in real time, seemingly adapting to the neurotoxin's presence. "Hey, is someone going to fix the ventilation in here?" one of the humans called out, noticing them at the window. "It's getting a bit stuffy." "Stuffy?" Vilera repeated incredulously. "You're surrounded by one of the deadliest neurotoxins known to science." The human, Dr. Sarah Chen, according to her nameplate, looked surprised. "Oh, is that what that smell is? Reminds me of my morning coffee, just a bit more citrusy." "Your what?" "Coffee. You know, the beverage we brought from Earth." "Here, want to see?" Dr. Chen held up her thermal container. Vilera quickly accessed the station's database, searching for information about this coffee. Her spots paled to an almost white color as she read the chemical analysis. "This can't be correct," she muttered. "This beverage contains multiple psychoactive compounds, including a powerful stimulant that acts on the central nervous system. And you deliberately consumed this." "Oh yeah, can't start the day without it," another human chimed in. "This is actually my 4th cup. Anyone want a refill while we wait for maintenance?" Vilera watched in astonishment as several humans held out their containers for more of the toxic brew. Her scientific mind was racing, making connections she hadn't considered before. "Zix," she said slowly, "compare the molecular structure of Nexilin 9 with the primary compounds in this coffee beverage." The analysis appeared on her screen, and suddenly the human survival made a bizarre kind of sense. The neurotoxin's molecular structure was remarkably similar to caffeine, one of coffee's primary components. Somehow, the humans' regular exposure to one neurotoxin had granted them resistance to another. "Dr. Chen," Vilera called out, "how long has your species been consuming coffee?" "Oh, thousands of years," Chen replied casually. "It's not just coffee either. We've got tea, chocolate, all sorts of good stuff. Some anthropologists think our ancestors started eating fermented fruit for the ethanol content, even before we were technically human." "Why do you ask?" Vilera's spots shifted to a deep blue of scientific fascination. "Because you've accidentally proven a theory that our xenobiologists have debated for centuries. Your species has been deliberately exposing itself to neurotoxins for so long that you've developed a generalized resistance to an entire class of compounds. What your ancestors did for survival or pleasure has granted you immunity to some of the deadliest substances in the galaxy." "Huh," Chen said, taking another sip of coffee. "Neat. So can we get maintenance in here? My cup's almost empty, and it's almost time for the afternoon coffee run." As if to underscore the absurdity of the situation, the station's AI announced that the Nexilin 9 levels had reached 400 parts per million. The humans continued their break as if nothing was wrong, while Vilera and Zix watched in amazement. "Cancel the evacuation order," Vilera instructed the AI, "but get a maintenance team in there as soon as possible." She paused, then added, "and update the station's safety protocols. We need to reevaluate our toxicity classifications where humans are concerned." "Should we inform the Galactic Council?" Zix asked. Vilera watched as one of the humans pulled out a dark bar of something called chocolate and began sharing it with their colleagues. Her spots rippled with amusement. "Oh yes," she said. "But first, I believe we need to completely revise our understanding of human biochemistry. And perhaps we should look more closely at other substances they consider recreational. They might just hold the key to revolutionizing our approach to toxic environments." The humans continued their break, unknowingly advancing galactic science's understanding of xenobiology while waiting for their next cup of coffee. The central quantum computing facility of the Galactic Alliance hummed with the combined processing power of 1 trillion quantum cores. The vast chamber, stretching for kilometers in every direction, contained the most advanced computational systems ever created. Yet today, all that computing power was focused on a single problem, and failing. Chief Quantum Architect Zurich watched in growing frustration as another simulation crashed. Their crystalline neural interface sparkled with error messages, each one confirming what the last 1,000 attempts had proven. The problem was unsolvable. The quantum entanglement cascade is simply too complex, they announced to the assembled council of the galaxy's finest minds. Even with our most advanced predictive algorithms, we cannot stabilize the reaction long enough to. Have you tried turning it off and on again? The interruption came from Dr. Maya Patel, one of the human representatives recently assigned to the facility. She stood by the holographic display, casually drinking something called a smoothie through a straw. Zurich's neural crystals flickered in annoyance. Dr. Patel, this is not some primitive electronic device. We are attempting to solve a quantum entanglement cascade that threatens to destabilize the entire transfer network. The mathematical complexity alone. Yeah, I read the equations. Maya interrupted again, walking around the display. But you're approaching this like it's a math problem. Sometimes you need to think about it like a plumber. The assembled alien scientists exchanged confused glances. Their neural interfaces queried their databases for the term plumber, resulting in even more confusion. A plumber, Maya explained, noting their bewilderment, is someone who fixes systems that carry fluids. My dad was one. He always said that sometimes a system gets too complex for its own good, and you need to break it down to basics. This is quantum mechanics, Dr. Patel, Zurich said slowly, as if explaining to a child. It operates on principles far removed from your primitive hydraulics. Maya shrugged. Sure, but energy is energy, whether it's water in a pipe or quantum information in a network. When my dad dealt with complex systems, he'd isolate sections, clear the blockages, and let natural pressure do the work. She stepped closer to the holographic display, her hands moving through the quantum visualization. Look here, you're trying to force the entanglement through predetermined paths. But quantum particles are like teenagers. The more you try to control them, the more they resist. Several of the alien scientists began to object, but Maya continued. Instead of fighting the cascade, why not give it somewhere to go? Create a quantum pressure release valve here and here. Her fingers pointed to specific nodes in the network. Let the excess energy bleed off into contained subsystems. That would destabilize the entire network. Zurich protested. Only temporarily, Maya countered. Like when you need to drain a pipe before fixing it. The network will compensate naturally once the pressure equalizes. Trust me, I've seen enough backed-up sinks to know how systems handle pressure. The room erupted in arguments, most of them explaining in various languages why this was impossible, illogical, and completely against all known principles of quantum mechanics. Maya just sipped her smoothie and waited. Finally, Junior Quantum Architect Vix spoke up. What do we have to lose? The network is already failing. The worst that could happen is exactly what's already happening. Zurich's neural crystals pulsed with reluctance, but they had to admit the logic. Very well. Preparing to implement. The plumber's solution. The vast quantum facility hummed as the new parameters were input. Warning signals flared across every display as the quantum cascade was deliberately diverted into containment nodes. For a moment, it seemed like the entire network would collapse. Then, like water finding its level, the quantum energies stabilized. The cascade didn't just stop. It resolved itself into a new, more efficient pattern. How? Zurich's neural interface was struggling to process the data. How did you know this would work? Maya finished her smoothie with a noisy slurp. I didn't, not really. But my dad always said that sometimes you need to let a system fix itself instead of trying to control every little thing. Quantum particles, water, teenagers, they all eventually find their natural balance if you give them the right space to do it. She looked around at the stunned faces of the galaxy's greatest quantum scientists. Also, I may have run a few simulations on my laptop during lunch break. Your quantum computers are amazing, but sometimes you need a simpler tool to see the bigger picture. Your laptop? Vix asked, neural crystals twitching in disbelief. Yeah, Excel sheets and some basic modeling software. Sometimes when you can't see the forest for the trees, it helps to draw a really simple map. The facility continued to hum, now operating more efficiently than ever before. As the alien scientists began analyzing the new configuration, trying to understand how this plumber's solution had succeeded where their most advanced algorithms had failed, Maya pulled out her phone. "Hey Dad," she texted, "remember when you showed me how to fix that complex circulating system in the Anderson building? Just use the same principle to fix a quantum network. Thanks for the lessons. Love you." Somewhere on Earth, a plumber read the message and smiled, not understanding the details but proud nonetheless. In the days that followed, the Galactic Alliance's quantum computing experts would write lengthy papers about the revolutionary new approach to quantum cascade management. They used complex mathematical formulas and advanced theoretical frameworks to explain why it worked. But Maya knew the truth was simpler. Sometimes the most complex problems need the simplest solutions, and sometimes the best way to understand the quantum realm is to think like a plumber. The observation deck of the galactic science vessel Eternal Curiosity offered a perfect view of what its crew was calling the human phenomenon. Outside, against the backdrop of empty space, a team of human engineers worked on the hull of their damaged vessel, the ESS Resilience, moving with a grace that defied the laws of physics, or at least what most species understood of them. First Science Officer Tilara of the Aetherian species watched through all 7 of her optical organs, each one focused on a different aspect of the impossible scene before her. Her crystalline exoskeleton hummed with confusion. "How long have they been out there?" she asked her assistant, Crix. "4 standard cycles," Crix replied, his data tendrils swaying gently. "They've refused all offers of our advanced repair drones, claiming they prefer the hands-on approach." Tilara's crystalline form shimmered with disbelief. Most species could barely tolerate extravehicular activity for half a cycle, even with the most advanced spacesuits. The psychological toll of the void usually broke them long before physical exhaustion set in. Yet these humans were out there, laughing and joking over their comm channels as they welded, cut, and reassembled their ship's damaged hull. "Show me their biosigns again," she ordered. The holographic display materialized, showing the vital statistics of the 6 humans working outside. Their heart rates were elevated but stable, their brain patterns showing high focus with none of the usual stress markers associated with prolonged exposure to space. "Look at this," Crix said, highlighting one of the humans who had just performed a complex series of maneuvers without using their maneuvering thrusters. "They're using the physics of motion in vacuum like they were born to it," Tilara finished. "But that's impossible. Their species only achieved spaceflight a few centuries ago. These adaptations should take millions of years of evolution." On the external cameras, they watched as one of the humans, Commander Sarah Chen, according to her suit telemetry, executed a perfect spin and stop maneuver that brought her precisely where she needed to be to catch a floating piece of hull plating. "Did she just?" Crix's tendrils twisted in confusion. "Yes," Tilara confirmed. She calculated a complex multi-vector momentum transfer problem in her head and executed it perfectly, all while maintaining a conversation about something called pizza with her colleagues. They continued to observe as the humans worked. Where other species needed constant computer assistance to move in zero gravity, the humans seemed to intuitively understand how to use momentum and inertia. They bounced off surfaces at precisely the right angles, used their tools as improvised propulsion devices, and even occasionally threw objects to their colleagues with perfect accuracy across impossible distances. It's as if they're dancing, Crix observed. Dancing? Tilera queried. A human art form involving coordinated body movements. I've been studying their culture. They seem to have an innate understanding of rhythm and motion that extends to everything they do. A new voice joined their conversation. That's because we never really stopped moving. Tilera and Crix turned to find Dr. James Rodriguez, the Resilience's chief engineer, floating in the observation deck's doorway. He had apparently come in for his scheduled break. What do you mean? Tilera asked. Humans never stopped moving, Rodriguez repeated, pushing off gently to join them at the window. From our earliest days, we were always in motion, running, jumping, swimming, climbing. Our brains evolved to constantly calculate trajectories, forces, and momentum, even before we understood the math behind it. He gestured to his colleagues outside. What you're seeing isn't some advanced technology or genetic engineering. It's just the natural extension of skills our species developed over millions of years of moving through our world. Space is just another medium to move through. But the void, Crix began. The emptiness, the isolation. Rodriguez laughed. Empty. Look out there. There's energy, matter, gravity wells, magnetic fields, solar winds. Space is full of forces to work with, if you know how to feel them. And as for isolation, he tapped his helmet. We've got our team, our music, and a job to do. What more do we need? Tilera's crystalline structure pulsed with realization. You're not adapting to space, she said slowly. You're adapting space to match patterns you already know. Exactly. Rodriguez beamed. Like surfing a wave or dancing to a new rhythm. Once you feel the pattern, the rest is just flow. Outside, Commander Chen had begun humming what she called a sea shanty, an old Earth song about sailing ships. One by one, her team joined in, their movements unconsciously synchronizing with the rhythm as they worked. We should be studying them, Crix whispered to Tilera. Their neural adaptation to spatial awareness alone could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness. They are not lab specimens, Tilera reminded him, but her tone was thoughtful, though perhaps we could learn from them in other ways. Dr. Rodriguez, would your crew be willing to teach some of our engineers your methods? Rodriguez grinned. Sure, though fair warning. Our teaching style is pretty hands-on. Hope your people are ready to dance with the void. As if to emphasize his point, outside the window, one of his crew members performed a perfect backflip using nothing but the momentum from their welding torch, all while reciting what appeared to be ancient Earth poetry about the stars. Tilera's crystalline form sparkled with amusement. Perhaps it was time for the galaxy's most advanced spacefaring civilizations to learn a few things from these newcomers who treated the terrifying void of space like their personal playground. After all, she mused, watching the humans work, sometimes the best teachers are those who never forgot how to dance. The emergency council chamber of the Galactic Alliance was in chaos. Representatives from 1,000 worlds argued in their native tongues as the holographic display at the center of the vast room showed their impending doom. The quantum cascade wave, a rupture in spacetime itself, expanding outward from a failed experimental dry system. High Chancellor Vex's crystalline form pulsed with despair as they watched the simulation play out again. According to their most advanced quantum computers, the wave would reach inhabited space in less than 30 standard cycles, destroying everything in its path. The computations are clear, announced Senior Theorist 6, their neural matrix glowing dimly. No known force can stop a quantum cascade once it reaches this magnitude. The wave will continue expanding until it consumes the entire galaxy. What about evacuation? Asked Ambassador Catal of the Meridian Collective. There isn't time, Zix replied. Even with our fastest ships, we could save less than 1% of the galactic population. Into this atmosphere of despair walked Dr. Elena Santos, Earth's representative to the Alliance. She was eating something called a breakfast burrito and studying the holographic display with unusual intensity. "Have you tried reversing the polarity?" she asked between bites. The chamber fell silent. "Reverse the polarity," Zix repeated slowly. "Dr. Santos, this isn't some primitive electronic device. We're dealing with a fundamental tear in the fabric of space-time." "Yeah, I get that," Elena said, wadding up her burrito wrapper. "But hear me out. Your simulations show the wave expanding because all the quantum particles are phase-shifted in one direction, right? What if we created an opposing wave? That would require more energy than exists in the entire galaxy," Zix protested. "Not if we use the wave's own energy against itself," Elena countered. She stepped into the holographic display, her hands moving through the simulation. "Look, it's like when I used to surf back home. You don't fight a big wave head-on. You use its own momentum to ride it." The assembled scientists stared at her in bewilderment. "Dr. Santos," High Chancellor Vex said gently, "while we appreciate Earth's contribution to the Alliance, this crisis requires solutions based on proven quantum physics, not aquatic sports." Elena wasn't listening. She had pulled out her personal tablet and was rapidly sketching something. "We don't need to stop the wave. We just need to change its shape. Look, if we position ships here, here, and here," she pointed to specific coordinates, "we can create a resonance pattern that forces the wave to fold back on itself." "That's..." Zix began, then stopped as their neural matrix processed the calculations. "That's completely absurd. Our ships would be torn apart instantly." "Not if we synchronize their shield frequencies to match the wave's quantum signature," Elena argued. "It's like, okay, you know how opera singers can shatter glass by hitting just the right frequency. Same principle, but in reverse. We match the wave's frequency, then shift it just enough to change its form." "And what do your primitive Earth computers say the success rate of this plan would be?" Zix asked condescendingly. Elena shrugged. "No idea. My laptop crashed trying to run the simulations, but my gut says it'll work." The chamber erupted in protests. The idea of betting the galaxy's survival on a human's gut feeling seemed like madness. But High Chancellor Vex was quiet, their crystalline form shifting through spectrums of thought. "Dr. Santos," they said finally, "our most advanced quantum computers say your plan is impossible. The mathematical models show a 0% chance of success. Why do you believe it will work?" Elena smiled. "Because sometimes the universe doesn't read the manual. Look, humanity has survived this long precisely because we don't always listen when something's impossible. We try anyway. And right now, trying something impossible seems better than accepting certain doom." She turned to address the chamber. "I know it sounds crazy, but think about it. The wave itself shouldn't be possible according to your models, right? So maybe we need to stop thinking about what's possible and start thinking about what's necessary." A murmur ran through the chamber. She had a point. Their existing models clearly hadn't predicted the possibility of the quantum cascade wave in the first place. "If we attempt this," Vex said slowly, "we would need volunteers to pilot the ships. The risk would be..." "Already got them," Elena interrupted. "My whole crew volunteered before I came to this meeting. We've got pilots from every Earth ship in the sector standing by. Turns out humans get really motivated when you tell them something's impossible." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then High Chancellor Vex stood, their crystalline form blazing with decision. "Very well, Dr. Santos, implement your surfing solution. May whatever deities exist have mercy on us all." 29 cycles later, ships from every Earth fleet in the sector positioned themselves around the expanding wave. Their shields hummed with frequencies that should have torn them apart. At their helm, human pilots prepared to do something that every quantum computer in the galaxy said was impossible. Elena's voice crackled over the comm system. "Remember everyone, just like we practiced. Feel the wave, don't fight it. And hey, if any of you actually manage to surf this thing, drinks are on me. Laughter echoed across the command channel as humanity prepared to either save the galaxy or go down trying something spectacularly stupid. The wave hit, and to the astonishment of every non-human observer, it worked. The quantum cascade folded in on itself, collapsing into a harmless ripple in space-time that would keep theoretical physicists arguing for centuries. As celebrations erupted across the galaxy, High Chancellor Vex turned to Zix. "Update the Alliance databases," they ordered. "Add a new theorem. When faced with an impossible problem, consult a human. They don't know enough to know what they can't do." Elena, listening nearby while nursing a celebratory coffee, just smiled. Sometimes the best solutions came not from knowing what was possible, but from being stubborn enough to try anyway. After all, that's how humanity had always done things, one impossible victory at a time.